This conference will now be recorded.
All right, Josh, really appreciate you jumping on the podcast with me. For those that don't know you very well, what would they know you from?
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Where would they know me from? Let's see. My brother was making fun of me the other day for being in the sports industry for a decade now, for 10 years. I bounced around quite a bit. Kind of the epitome of kind of go where the opportunity is. I spent some time in minor league baseball for a couple of years right out of college. Started my career, really cut my teeth with the Oakland A's as a younger sales rep back maybe 7-8 years ago, and then bounced around a little bit, kind of make my round around the industry, around the NBA. I worked a little bit with the New Orleans Pelicans, New Orleans Saints. Was with the Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center. Had a great opportunity there. Loved everything about it. And then most recently, about a year and a half ago, made my way back to Oakland, full circle, and had an opportunity to expand our staff as our director of group sales and hospitality.
That's awesome. And so there's a lot of people that, including myself, that look back and say some of what they loved about some of their formative years was spending time in minor league sports. So what was it about minor league sports, and would you recommend that to someone coming out of college? What was it that you took from there that was a good learning platform?
Yeah, minor league baseball is the best for so many reasons. For some of the business reasons, some of the personal side of things, it's just a lot of fun. Very informal, but you really have an opportunity to do everything, from selling the tickets to ripping the tickets to wrapping hot dogs to tarping the field. Now, some folks want to make a career out of that. For me, it was a good opportunity to really learn the business, learn the industry, build the network. I recommend it to anyone looking to work in sports. Some folks will go the route of inside sales, and there's nothing wrong with that. I say minor league baseball, and now more and more, you're seeing G League, NBA basketball, and all that. But minor league baseball, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got a tarp pulling story, right? From the minor league side of the business. So it's group sales month here. You've been a director in group sales now, working with NBA teams, Major League Baseball teams. When you're working with your staff and you're starting to think about, what are some of the fundamentals behind group sales that really dictate success? Whether it's how you interact with clients or what you do every day, what are some of those things that, are in the forefront of the discussions that you have with your staff?
Yeah, I mean, group sales, as far as the industry goes, is interesting. It's very different for many reasons than your traditional season ticket sales or suite sales. It's a different type of mindset you really have to have. It's not quite as black and white as selling a season ticket package, right? It can go in a variety of different avenues, but at the end of the day, the basic building blocks is, I think at the end of the day, everyone is a little bit of an event planner. You're really, what I tell our folks is, when you're talking to groups, when you're talking to clients, it really doesn't matter if you're playing baseball. It really doesn't matter if you're playing basketball. It really doesn't matter what the venue is. You're selling an experience. You're selling an event. You're bringing people together. Group sales, to me, is we're in the business of bringing people together for whatever reason it may be. Birthday party, event, corporate party. So very event-based, very logistical-oriented. You're looking for someone that can handle quite a few different opportunities at one time.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. So I think, and I get this all the time. You get all these people that are getting into sports being like, I don't know. I think I want to be in community relations, or I think I want to be in marketing. And I'm like, we have that. Like that is literally our group sales department.
Right.
So as you talk about, the types of people and the types of personalities you're looking for and that you see successful as group sales, what are some of those personalities and mindsets that you see that may, as you talked about, that may differentiate a group salesperson from a season ticket salesperson?
Well, I mean, you hit it on the head. Group sales is you're a Swiss Army knife. You are doing a little bit of community relations. You're in stadium operations. You're in sales. You're in event planning. You're doing it all. I talk to people all the time that say, I really want to work in marketing. I really want to work in events. That's exactly what group sales is. You got to have a little bit of a sales hat on, but at the end of the day, you are an event planner.
And I love the Swiss Army knife thing, and I think one of the things that's really important about the concept of the Swiss Army knife is you also have to be able to pull that Swiss Army knife out with all of your clients, because you don't know where that conversation is going to go. You may be working with a nonprofit, and you've worked with a dozen nonprofits before, but you may actually create something with them that is entirely unique to the entire industry. So can you talk about some of that mindset when you're sitting down with a organization, whatever it is, for the first time, a youth baseball organization, a nonprofit organization, a church? What is that thought process that goes through your head when you're sitting down with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really going to vary from every opportunity. Is going to be different. The way I look at it is, we have, call it 30 or 40 different products, different assets, and we have access to every single one of them, right? So talking to the client, working with the partners, collaborating, seeing what's going to work, talking about what their vision is, and then looking at the ballpark, looking at what we have at our disposal, and putting it all together. So it's kind of like a big puzzle.
Yeah.
And you got 100 different pieces, and you put it all together. Which, group sales, that's fun to me. Maybe you think more like a sponsorship seller, and you have a whole menu of different opportunities. How do we make that work for the client at hand? Again, it could be a nonprofit, it could be a business, it could be a family party.
I love that you mentioned it that way, because I think what I hear too often, whether I'm doing training or in some of my travels and doing some consulting, I hear reps who may be calling for their faith and family night. They're trying to ram that faith and family night on top of the church that they're doing, as opposed to what you just said, which is, listen, they may be a church, and faith and family night will probably be the best fit for them, but that church could buy an entirely their own group and want to do it on entirely their own night. So that mindset that of walking into it being like, I need to listen to you, I need to understand you, and then I'm going to take all these assets and resources that we have and try to utilize them backwards. Where did that philosophy come for you? Because, like, as people will see and have seen, we're going to talk about that all group sales month. I think the fundamental way that we teach group sales sometimes is backwards. We pitch the product or idea first, when the reality is what we need to be is like, I don't know what's going to be the right thing for you until we sit down and have that discussion. So where did that mentality come from for you? Because a lot of times, especially for me, my mentality on the group sales side for that one came from calling over and over and over and getting rejected over and over and over again by people that couldn't care less what I thought, wanted to buy it for their own reasons.
Sure. I think for me, I think the NBA opened my eyes up to that, right? I think in the NBA, every team does a really good job of maximizing the assets that they have in their building, right? You talk about the word experience, right? Everyone, talks about experience, and the NBA does the best job as it relates to, how do I maximize the 2 hours that the court is not being used? How do I maximize the fact that we have a high five line, right? So I'm going to go high five the players. How do I maximize the opportunity where the players are warming up, about an hour before the game, and we happen to have some courtside seats right there for fans to sit and enjoy that experience, right? So really taking every single minute, every single hour that goes into a game day, and how do we maximize that?
Yep.
How do we use that for to create an experience?
And that's great. But it's easier in the NBA. It's easier in Major League Soccer. It's easier that you have fewer games and you've got fewer seats to work with. One of the big challenges in baseball for a group sales rep is, how do I manage all the seats that we have available over 81 games? Like, that just creates group sales in baseball is just insanely important for it, but it's such a huge undertaking. How do you have to change the way that you viewed it from the NBA to Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I see that challenge as an opportunity. I see that challenge as exciting. I see that challenge as in, let's go get it, right?
Yeah.
So I think group sales was made for baseball.
Yeah.
Group sales, as much as you have that experience opportunity with the NBA, you're also hindered a little bit because there is only 40 games and there's only 16,000 seats. So I see it very much as an opportunity. In baseball, especially some of the larger stadiums now, there's a lot of distressed inventory. There's a lot of seats that are not being utilized. So I see that as how do we use group sales as a vehicle to do some creative things here, right? So today, this morning, A's game, 12:30 day game, we had about 5,000 high school students in the ballpark before the game, before the gates opened, and we did a sports career panel. So we had about 8 people from our front office, 2 different panels, speak to the students about their experience working in sports, very much like we are now. A little more geared down towards high school students, internships, college, right? But we sold about 5,000 tickets that would not have been sold if it wasn't for group sales and just the opportunity to be creative. On the flip side, we also did a great service for the community, for schools, for students in the Bay Area, where they got very tangible opportunity to hear from these front office members, an opportunity I would have loved to been a part of, when I was in high school. So
Sure.
really, this morning was actually a very good example of everything we're talking about here and maximizing the different opportunities in the ballpark.
Sure. And I love that. It's such a, I always say, my favorite, so I'm more of a season ticket salesperson by nature, which is always funny when I'm doing group sales month, but my favorite sales have always been my groups. So for you, what are some of those groups that you had that you sold that really stood out to you over the years? It could be one, it could be, for the purposes of time, maybe like 2 or 3, but what were some of those groups that really helped fundamentally prove to you that you were either a group sales guy or cemented your love of group sales, or just ones that really stick out in your memory?
Yeah, I think I really have to go back to my minor league days to talk about some of my favorite ones. And to your point, I think when you're selling season tickets, they're not quite as memorable.
Yeah.
They're certainly just as important. But groups you really do remember. And part of the reason is because you're creating that experience for these folks. But part of what kind of got me on the map a little bit and helped me advance my career was this whole concept of networking at the ballpark, networking at the stadium, right? So looking at the stadium as not where you play baseball, but looking at the stadium in venue as a place to bring people together. So at a very young age in the industry, I was maybe 6 months into my internship with the Lakewood Blue Claws, Lakewood, New Jersey. Shout out to the Jersey Shore. But we did an event called 9 Innings of Networking. And it's something that's very memorable to me, something that's very special to me. But it was really one of the first teams to ever bring the whole concept of networking, business networking, to a stadium. Now we do that every single day, every league, every team. It's really not that big of a deal now. It's still very impactful and still very special for the stadiums here. But that was for me my favorite memory of selling group tickets and bringing people together. So 9 innings of networking. We never quite got to the point of a trademark, but I think it's still a pretty neat story that really helped advance my career.
Yeah, and you seem to have those seminal moments in group sales where you start to be like, oh, I instead of just trying to sell the group, oh, I see how this solves the problem. I see how this helps people out. I see how it functions as a very positive thing for each person. So the next one, it's one of the questions that I get written in on the website, and part of the reason I waited for Group Sales Month was I got so many requests into the website about group sales that I wanted to make sure that we try to tackle all of them and bucket all of them. And whether it is group sales or season ticket sales, time management is the one that wraps right into the site about the most. I mean, there's no question. There's like a line underneath it and then a bunch of other stuff. So when you work with your reps or you think about how you budget your time for your day, how does a rep need to make sure they buy? And again, it changes in the off season, the early season, the back end of the season. But what should a day, right now for you guys, you're in the middle of the season, you're beginning middle, I guess, kind of. What should a rep's day look like, beginning middle? And then I think this is the most important one. What should a rep's, so start there, and then the second one would be, what does a rep's day need to look like in the off season? Because I think that's a lot of times the biggest miss on the group sales side.
Yeah, I think this is a very topical, area of the business, whether you're an entry-level salesperson or, a senior executive, right? Whether you work in sports or business, time management is super important. I think in group sales, more than anything, you can really get carried away with non-sales activities, right?
Yes.
And we can read all the different articles out there about the 5 things you need to do or 10 things you need to do. But at the end of the day, it really comes to accountability and holding yourself accountable to what needs to be done. So during the season is going to be very different than the off season. But during the season, it's a marathon, right? It's a constant race, right? You got your current clients, you have your prospective clients, you have the servicing that needs to be done, you have the inner office logistics that need to be taken care of, right? Because we are in the event planning business. But I would advise any young salesperson or senior level salesperson is just to be very, very intentional about what you're doing, and to hold yourself accountable to what needs to be done, right? So, literally take the 8 hours in your day, 9 hours in your day, whatever it may be, and time block. If you need to color code your calendar, color code your calendar. If you need to, put alarm clocks, on each hour of the day, whatever you have to do. Everyone has their own system. It's something that we all struggle with, and it's something that's never going to go away because we always want more time.
Yeah.
But in the off season, on the flip side, the off season is the selling season, right? So we all get the typical question of what do you do in the off season? Is it a vacation? And far from it.
I think my parents still think that.
Yes. So no, in the off season, I think it's very important, especially in baseball or whatever sport you're in, to play to the season, right? So from October to January, you're going to be in heavy renewal focus. From January to March, you're going to be in heavy new business focus. And then during the season, it's kind of a mix of everything. And really, I think as a young salesperson, ask questions. If you're not sure where your time should be spent, ask the question.
Yeah. It's group sales is the one. It's so weird, right? Because there's a question coming, I promise. But in group sales, in season ticket sales, when you become better at season ticket sales, you grow every year. Your numbers grow every year because you are getting better at it, and it's such a day in, day out, very black and white. Like, these are who I need to reach out to. This is what I need to get accomplished. This is what I'm looking to try to do. So that as you increase your skills, you get better at it because it is very similar every day. Group sales is not. Group sales can be very different every single day. And what I see sometimes is you see a rep build themselves up over 2 or 3 years in terms of the book of business they inherit, the book of business they get, the book of business that they create and develop up over 3 years. And then sometimes what you see is, in years 3, 4, 5, they'll actually backslide a little bit because they become so addicted to their book of business and the conversations that they're able to have that they forget about going out and finding new business. Because they say, well, listen, if I'm a $350,000 or $1 million seller, I'll lose 3% of that. That's fine because I'm still going to be there. How did you stay excited about finding and going after new prospects, and how do you motivate a staff to continue to understand why that new business side and finding those new opportunities is so critical?
Yeah, it's a topic that we talk about often, and it's a topic that we're also not satisfied just doing it the way we've always done it either. So it's something we talked about earlier today is how do we address this moving forward as a salesperson to stay as efficient as possible and just to maximize revenue for the company as well. But for me, a lot of the fun with group sales is the fact that you get to work with the same folks year after year. And part of that's on you to have the relationship, right? So I can remember a lot of my early years selling, and in group sales, you do have that opportunity where you're going to continually find new people through your current people.
Yep.
Right? You're going to continually find opportunities for referrals, opportunities where, hey, maybe that group of 50 that came out, there's 5 other business owners that want to do something similar. So I think it's important to be very available to your current clients, to your current book of business, with the focus on referrals and with the focus on new business.
Yep.
Keep that very top of mind. The best salespeople are very good at that, right? The best salespeople ask for referrals on every single call, whether it's a person that's been coming out for 10 years or it's their first time coming out, right?
Yep.
So I think, again, that's really the building blocks. That's the simple stuff that we talk about, but I don't know if we do it enough. I don't know if we act upon it enough. And I think as we move forward with the industry itself, I think the whole notion and concept of group sales retention versus group sales new business, and making sure that you're allocating the proper resources to each bucket will continue to be a topic that's discussed and talked about. And there's a very small amount of teams that I'm aware of that are starting to go down that bucket.
Yeah.
And it's something that the A's for sure will be revisiting this during this off season, and looking for ways to increase our retention rate, looking for ways to increase our new business without necessarily hiring 10 more people.
Yeah. But and one of the things that I think that there is a huge opportunity for that we just don't ask about is focusing on who within our book of business. So we spend almost equal amounts of time, right, with like the 20-person group, and sometimes you do with the 1,000-person group when it comes on the renewal side. And my philosophy, and please disagree, is that we need to start getting more transactional on the groups that don't impact our overall business. And what we need to do is focus on those groups that really are investing with us and finding ways to be able to grow those every year, because in a lot of ways, those groups are the ones that's part of the reason the book deflates, is those groups actually take a step back. I was at the Columbus Crew, and basically we had to redo our entire 5K because I think it went from 850 to like 75 people over time.
Sure.
And yet it was just like, well, I've got this in my book of business. I know what to do. I can roll it out next year. And 850 to 750, that's not bad. 750 to 600, I'll take it. 600 to 500, it's still a big group. Like, we get that mentality, and yet, our rep redid it, and she ended up doing like 2,500 tickets because of the reinvestment into the opportunity. So I know I didn't really ask a question there, but you talk about what that opportunity is, because I don't think we take advantage of it, and how a rep should approach those groups where they think there's more opportunity than what we get out of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic that can go in a few directions, but I think one piece that stands top of mind to me is, us as industry folks, we're in the weeds of this every single day, and we're talking to a client who's been coming out 5 years in a row. We try to renew them again in year 6, and they're like, oh, hey, Josh, we're going to do something different.
Yeah.
But we're doing the same thing every single year, so why are we so surprised that they're doing something different, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a 5K, whether it's a theme night, and I think at times we may rest a little bit on our laurels, and we may forget to say, well, what about this? What about that? How can I kind of retool this a little bit? Whether it's, at the notion of increasing revenue, or whether it's simply trying to get them back on board in itself, right?
Yeah.
So I think at times we forget, or we just don't have it top of mind to continue to innovate when it comes to our different offerings that we have at the ballpark or venue, whatever the case might be. I think that's an important topic that falls somewhere in that varied question there.
How do you bring that up? So the toughest thing is I think reps understand that mentally. I think when push comes to shove, they're like, what if I ask them? And they're like, no, I hate you now. Like, please go away forever.
Right.
And when I teach group sales, I talk about the Adam Dunn approach to group sales all the time. It's just swing as hard as you can, as big as you can, and you will make a lot of money because of it.
Right.
Like, that's what Adam Dunn did. He walked up to the plate every time trying to hit a home run, and he made like $150 million in his career because he connected. And I think a lot of times we get so transactional on the group sales side. Like, our group minimum's 20, but like, how many groups of 20 would it take you to hit your goal across the course of the year? And then how many groups of 1,000 would it take you to hit your goal across the course of the year? So I think one of the biggest questions that reps really struggle with is, how do I bring up to a group who may be doing 100 tickets with me that I believe there is opportunity to do 1,000 tickets? How do I bring that up in a conversation without completely pissing them off?
Well, first off, I love the Adam Dunn approach. You're going to hit a lot of 500-foot home runs. You may only hit 202.
Yeah.
And that may be okay, right? If you're going to make 15 mil.
Yeah.
No, it's a good question. I think, there's the one approach of just ask and see what happens.
Yeah.
You may have varied success there. I think comes down to the trust factor. I think it comes down to the rapport factor. I think it comes down to, does your client trust you?
Yeah.
Right. And certain people are going to give that trust more easily than others. But I think it's really important to just don't go for the quick sale.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you want to make the sale as quick as possible, and certainly, ticket sales managers and directors and leaders oftentimes preach that. But take a step back. If you truly feel like there is an opportunity because that is a 1,000-person company and they're only doing a group of 50.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, shame on me for not taking the time to get to know their process and get to know what they're doing. So it's easier, so certainly a lot easier said than done.
And it's going to be, so sorry for cutting you off, but it's also like, and I think this is important for the reps to understand, is you have to do 20 groups of 50 to get that one group of 1,000.
Yeah.
And so even though you're investing more time, like you said, which is such an important point, it is going to be less time than selling 20 groups of 50.
I think, yeah, I agree. I totally agree. It's a numbers game, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But I think part of our job, again, is, we're kind of the doctor, and the group client is our patient, and how do we prescribe them what they're looking for? Oftentimes they may not know what they're looking for. They may not know what is possible, right? So working with your clientele, working with your prospects, what motivates them? What motivates their team? What motivates their boss? What motivates the rest of their group? One easy example, we introduced the opportunity to do a post-game catch on the field last season, right? So we had a group that's been coming out for 6-7 years, doing roughly the same event every single year, roughly 50-60 people. And our sales rep introduced this idea, which to even our team, the whole concept of doing a post-game catch was very far-fetched. Like, really? We can get our whole group on the field? So we introduced that idea, and all of a sudden the group turned into a 50-person group and a 200-person group.
Yeah.
Now that's a very small example, but if you do that from an 80-game basis, you can increase some revenue there. You can increase some business there. So I think part of this conversation too is going to the ticket sales managers and directors and other leaders out there, and what opportunities are you presenting to your sales team?
Yeah, it's awesome.
What else are we doing that is new? Like I often say to our team, talk about everything that's new. Don't talk about what they've been doing for the last 10 years.
It's great. I love
Talk about what's new.
So I'm also a big believer that, and I can, because, I've spent a lot of time as a director and a vice president. But here's a problem, right? You're teaching a patient approach, right? But every new salesperson is going to be the GM of the team next year. Right?
Yeah, everyone's going to be a GM.
Yeah. So how do you, as a director, because I think, we have tons of reps that listen to this, but, we also have directors and managers that listen to this. How do you teach this patient approach that we just talked about, and hopefully people get why it's so critical now? How do you teach this approach to a generation of salespeople who, like I said, are so focused on getting to that next job so quickly that in a lot of cases won't include working with that group again? So how do you make sure they understand why that patient approach is so important as a manager or director?
Yeah, it's not easy, because I also have a boss that's also saying, well, what's up tomorrow? What's up the next day? What's up the day after that? So I think it's a balance. I think in anything in life, a good balanced approach is going to be healthy. But there's also no harm in kind of going all in when you have to, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to happen at different times throughout the course of the sales process. I think in the off season, you have a lot more leeway. You have a lot more time. There's a little less pressure, where you can afford to be a little more creative.
Yeah.
You can afford to have some different conversations that maybe you're not having, in May, for games that are approaching in June. So I think it's important to have a balanced approach, but to lean one way or the other, depending on what time of year it is, right? So I think, if you're a team that's not in the postseason, and you're in October, November, you do have some opportunity there to do things a little differently. you do have an opportunity to take a couple steps back, go meet up with your client, review how things went this past season, and talk big picture. And be very direct. It's okay to be direct. But again, it comes down to the trust factors and how direct you can be.
Yeah. The whole conversation you just said was so spot on. But the one question that keeps sticking out in my mind is how do you create urgency in group sales? Because that's the biggest thing. You need to take a patient approach. You need to work and develop something with your client. But then at the end of the day, to your point, you've got to get them to make a decision. And a lot of times what I see where group sales reps that struggle the most are the group sales reps that do a good job getting in front of people, do a good job having conversations with people, but then just time happens because they just believe that group can make the decision about their group when they're ready. And in sales, nothing, especially when this is not a needs-based sale or a product, only bad things happen with time. So how do you, I mean, this is the struggle with group sales. How do you marry this patient, smart, trust-gaining approach with the idea that we still need to get them to make a decision in a reasonable time frame?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and there's not a
perfect answer
by any means. There's no magic wand here, but I think it really comes down to your approach from day one, right? You know, again, are we talking in October for a game in July, or are we talking April for a game in June? You certainly want to use everything at your disposal to present this urgency, right? So whether it's a face-to-face meeting and you're showing them how much fun people are having, whether it's just the fact that it's a limited opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I only have 2 left. I only have 5 left. And you certainly want to have some direct conversations throughout the process of, I'm going to call you Friday. You said your meeting's Thursday. And we're going to, figure out what's next.
Yep.
They don't pick up. You leave a voicemail. Another week goes by. To your point, time is going to kill every deal.
Yeah.
But I think it's just very important to be deadline oriented.
Yeah.
And have some self-made urgency there, where you're holding your clientele accountable, you're holding your prospects accountable. And then if you're not getting the answers you want, move on.
Yeah.
There's plenty more people to call, but it's certainly a struggle that we all deal with, whether it's group sales, suite sales, or any other product out there.
I love that you just said move on, because I think that's such a, when you talk about time management, one of the most fundamental misses that we talk about is spending so much time calling so many people that have no interest in doing business with us. So how do you teach a rep to identify what's the difference between a ghost account or an account that has no intention of purchasing with us? That's a tough question too. Well, how do you teach the difference between that type of account and then one that is moving the process forward? It's just taking longer than a normal sales cycle.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard, and I think at the end of the day, experience is the best solution for that, right? So, you said it a little while ago, but you're going to have different light bulb moments where you learn from different mistakes that you may encounter, and I think that's the best thing that you can do, right? But the worst thing you can do is be a prisoner of hope and have 100 people in your pipeline that really are just not interested.
Yeah.
Right.
So how much time are you spending calling those people, emailing those people, that even if they're especially, what's worse, if they're a ghost account, sometimes that's better. Sometimes the worst ones are the ones that continue to respond to you but have no.
You don't want a maybe.
No.
You want a yes or a no. And as quick as you can get to that no, great.
Yeah.
Move on. So I think really experience is going to be the telltale sign there. I think every sales rep, their year 2 is always better than their year 1.
Yeah.
Whether it's selling groups or season tickets. You just gotta have a feeling. You just gotta have that instinct that, like, I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move on. And don't worry about it, right? Don't sweat it. Don't talk about it. Just move on. And if they're a decent enough prospect and someone that has some professionalism there, they'll call you back.
Yeah.
They'll get you.
So two things I want to touch on because you made two great points. Like, if you're a young person and you don't have that experience, that's what your manager and that's what senior sales reps are there for. Like, this is like, ask, like, if you're listening at, like, if this is the situation I'm in, this is the type of feedback am I getting? Are these people serious? Is this a real, like, ask that question, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll have different cadences based on the type of category it is, whether it's a business, whether it's a school, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's someone who purchased a group outing in 2017 versus 2018, right? So I think we'll have some prescriptions available to our team to guide them along the way. But at the end of the day, the folks on the phone, the folks taking care of business here are going to know best. But use your managers as a resource. Ask the question, hey, am I making too many calls here? Hey, this guy hasn't picked up after 7 calls. Should I keep calling him? No, probably not. Move on. We have some more folks that you can call. So I usually say just, close your eyes and see what happens, right? Just go as fast as you can, and you make some mistakes along the way.
I love that.
As long as you can take a moment to step back and learn from those mistakes, I think I'd prefer that every single time rather than tentatively, calling these people over and over and over.
100%. And I think the last one, and this may be a good one to end on, because I think this is such a critical point to talk about in group sales, is I love that you said deadline oriented, because when we don't put barriers in place and touch points in place and things in place that we as a group are aiming for, the group becomes aimless. So even if they agree to do the group, a lot of times if we don't put those tactics in place, not even just on the new call, which is when it's important too to be able to close it, but even when you're doing group sales, putting those tactics in place are really important. One of the eye-opening ones for me was it took me 18 months to sell a suite once. And I look back on it and I was like, that wasn't very efficient. Like 18 months is a long sales cycle. And so I was just like, what happened? Why did it end up closing? And when you were talking about that, it just made me remember that one specifically, because there was something I needed to, there was a deadline or a touch point, and we hit all of them. Now, obviously, they weren't done as efficiently as they could have been done, but we kept hitting touch points and we kept hitting deadlines. And so one of the things that people, that I hear a lot in this business is, how good a group's going to do within about 72 hours of it going on sale, if that's the way. So knowing that we need to get these deadlines, knowing that we need to drive this action, how do you create momentum for a group? How do you make sure that you're maximizing a group through the momentum that you create?
Well, to touch on something you said there, I think a lot of what we just talked about comes back to your other question of time management, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, your time is valuable. Our time is valuable, right?
Yep.
I had a sales trainer a couple years back that said, you have 24 hours a day. Let's compare that to $24. Are you going to just waste money? Are you going to just waste time? So I think this is all part of that same discussion.
Absolutely.
And then as far as how do you build momentum, you want to find wins, right? You want to find a win on every single phone call. You want to take baby steps, when a sale is not being made, on the first or second call, right? So always learn something, always have a purpose for the call. Have some good questions where you're going to get a yes or you're going to get a no, and you're going to figure out kind of where you stand with that group. Are you the decision maker? Are you not? Are you still looking at this opportunity? Okay, no, great. We'll stop talking, or we'll pivot to think about something down the road. So just trying to be as direct as possible. Put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
We're also talking about their time. So I think at the end of the day, again, it's humanizing this experience, humanizing this conversation. Put yourself in their shoes. I told some of our team the other day, when we're calling certain companies, certain businesses, let's not put them on a pedestal. Talk to them like you would talk to your friend. Talk to them like you would talk to your buddy. Look at your text messages to your friend, and then look at your emails to the person you're talking to at XYZ company. They don't have to be all that different. So to that point, be direct. Get an answer, get a yes or a no, and it's going to help save you a lot of time. going to help save them a lot of time, and I think they'll respect that as well.
I mean, it's an awesome point to end on, because I think people have this idea that group sales can go on and on and on and on, when the reality is, in a lot of ways, it's a little bit more of a complex season ticket sale. Like, we still need to get to the result, and it may take a little bit longer than a traditional season ticket sale, but there still needs to be something that we
For sure.
All right. Well, listen, I certainly appreciate the time. This was a blast. This is certainly reinforces why I need to keep doing these in person. So I appreciate it. I know you've got a lot of work to do, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, Brett.
All right, buddy.
Pleasure.
Thank you.